Hello, beautiful people of the internet. I hope you're all doing very well. It's been a while since I have recorded a video, mostly because towards the end of the year things got a little crazy, holidays and such, but also with my food blog and events were just piled on top of me. Things got a little out of control. So since the beginning of this year, I've been meaning to make a video just kind of updating everybody on where I'm at, if anybody is interested. Don't know if they are, but I have some other things I wanted to talk about, and I'm getting ready to go to something tonight which is actually pertinent to what I wanted to talk about. So first of all, hair changed a bit. Used to have the blue / turquoise up here, and then the purple, and then red at the bottom. So I kind of just reversed it. So this is actually red, but I purposely wanted it to fade a little yellow and orange so that I get kind of a rainbow effect. And then I gradiated in some pink. Then we've got the purple in the middle, and then the back is the blue / turquoise, which is starting to show through a little green, but I'm okay with it because I kind of have got like a whole rainbow going on, so that's cool. But so now that you've seen the hair, I'm going to put it back so that I can start off my makeup. I decided to change it mainly because I had had the same configuration for about 3 years. It was almost exactly 3 years. And nobody believed me that I had that configuration for that long because of the way it faded. Because it would fade from very vibrantly jewel tones into sort of softer, I don't want to say pastels because it really didn't go pastel, but the blue would go turquoise, and then the purple would go kind of silvery, and then the red would go more of a naturalistic auburn. So it faded very well, and that was why I kept that configuration for a long time. I think 3 years might be a record for me. So yeah, decided to change things up a little bit. Also, got a new tattoo, which I hope you guys can see that. Hope it's in frame. Yeah, so if you can't tell, that tattoo is meant to pay homage to David Bowie. It's an Aladdin Sane-inspired lightning bolt. If you've watched any of my other videos, you may know that I was a fairly big David Bowie fan, and his death very much affected me. And in fact, the thing I'm going to tonight is a David Bowie tribute concert that's happening at a club near my house. Club I've never been to before, and they are having a tribute band in called Sons of the Silent Age, who are strictly a Bowie tribute band as far as I know. They're also having in special guests, one of which is confirmed to be Ava Cherry. So if anybody is a Bowie file, you'll know who Ava Cherry was. She was one of his backup singers in the 70s. They were lovers. They lived together in New York for a while. So it's kind of cool that they got someone who actually knew him. And today I read that Sinead O'Connor is supposed to be there too, so that'll be interesting. I don't really know if that's true or not. It was just like kind of mentioned in a newspaper article, but I don't really have much of an opinion of her. I know of some of her music. I think she has a lovely voice. I think she's lovely in that she emotes very well when singing, and I believe her emotions. I think she's kind of obnoxious as a person, though. But as an artist, I think she's fine. Not like my favorite person in the world, but it'll be kind of cool to see her if she is there. Yeah, Bowie's death very much affected me. Still kind of dealing with it. I know it's weird to some people to be affected that strongly by a celebrity death, and up until now I really haven't been affected this strongly by celebrity death, but he is a large part of who I am now, and his music really meant a lot to me. Not just his music, but his philosophy on life and art, and just everything he kind of stood for. Very, very much influenced who I am as an adult. I first kind of got into him when I was, oh gosh, maybe like 12 or 13. Don't really remember exactly what brought me into him. I kind of discovered classic rock all at once when I was like between 10 and 12. And he was just kind of lumped in there at some point, but he kind of took more precedence than some of the other things that I got into, and it's just been like a lifelong love affair with his music. And I was so excited last year when the David Bowie Is exhibit was at the MCA here in Chicago, and I actually went to go see it twice. I went once by myself, just because I felt like I needed to kind of experience it myself. And then I really wanted to go back, and I offered to get my mom tickets when she came out to visit me for Christmas. So I had took her to that as well, and we very much enjoyed it. I really wish it was permanent here. I know it's touring the world now and going to some different cities so that other people can see it, but man, if that was a permanent exhibit in Chicago, I'd be there every weekend. It was the closest I said at the time, and it's now true, is the closest I'll ever get to seeing him live. So I kind of treasure it now. But tonight should be kind of cool, because the lead singer, apparently, of this band, which I apologize, I do not remember his name, but I know that he's the lead singer of like another fairly well-known band, and I think the drummer used to drum for Smashing Pumpkins or something. Like, there's significant people involved in this band. They actually, I think, played at part of the opening ceremonies for the exhibit. But yeah, he apparently doesn't do an impression of David Bowie, but his vocal stylings are very similar. I don't know, I haven't heard him yet. This is just what I've read. But we'll find out. I'm pretty excited to go to this thing. I've been kind of anticipating it. The day that he passed away, well, I should say the morning, evening, he kind of passed away late on a Sunday night, and the news came down like in the middle of the night. So I wake up fairly early to go to work in the mornings, usually around 5 o'clock or so. And that Monday morning, I woke up and just saw message after message after message from a bunch of English friends of mine. So, of course, they had gotten the news before I woke up, because they were awake because of time zones. And I just immediately started bawling. Could not believe what I was reading. But it was also due to his album that he had released the previous Friday on his birthday, called Black Star, which, if you haven't heard it by now, and I think a lot of people who are into Bowie at this point most likely will have heard it, but if you haven't, I recommend it. It's not the happiest of albums, as you may know. It was kind of his farewell / epitaph / eulogy for himself. When they first released the full album on Friday morning, Friday in general, I had listened to it and literally thought to myself, this is him packing his bags and telling us he's getting ready to go. That thought ran through my head, but his stuff is always kind of heavy and a little, can get a little morbid, so it didn't stick with me that much, but I had felt that way even when he released the next day, that it was kind of like, he's getting ready, he's getting us prepared. So when I listened to that album back again the Monday morning that we found out that he had gone, I was just devastated, because immediately I was hearing it in the lyrics just like everybody else did. Especially in that last song, which is I Can't Give Everything Away. Whew, I still haven't, I don't think I've listened to that song fully since he passed, because it's hard. And a lot of people bring up Black Star, and they bring up Lazarus as, having very prophetic lyrics, which they do. Those ones, for whatever reason, I find a little easier to get through, but that last one on that album is just killer. So yeah, I went into work an absolute mess. My boss and all my coworkers know what a big fan I am of his, and so they were all very kind, kind of just let me deal with my sadness that day, but it was work as usual. I wish I wasn't there, but I had no choice. And while I was sitting at my office, I had the idea of getting a tattoo to kind of memorialize him. I've had the ideas for all the tattoos that I want to get since I was a teenager. And the only one that I've gone through with so far was my peace sign that's there on my top of my boob. It's supposed to be over my heart. Peace in my heart. That was, was a birthday gift to myself for my 25th birthday. It was kind of an impulsive thing, in that the day I got it, I didn't wake up knowing I was getting a tattoo. I just kind of decided to get it one day. And that was kind of how this one came about too, was just me sitting there at my office desk. I remembered that there is a tattoo parlor, salon, I don't know what the politically correct term for it is, but nearby my office, in which a patient at my office actually works. And I thought about calling him for a minute to see if he was in. And then I just decided, you know what? No, I'm going to walk over there after work and just see what happens. We're going to see what kind of prices they can give me. You know, and I didn't even know if they would be able to take me in that moment. But it was kind of important to me to get it on that day so that I remembered that day. So I walked over there after I got off of work, and sure enough, the guy who was my patient was in the office. I didn't ask for him. I saw him sitting there working on someone else. The girl at the front, I showed her a similar tattoo and said, this is what I want to get. And immediately she was just like, oh, you know, commiserating. So she walked straight over to him, and I watched her and gave him the design. He said, yeah, I can do it. Didn't look up to see that it was me. Until a few minutes later when he said, oh, what are you doing here? And I said, I'm getting work done by you. So it felt good that it was going to be done by someone at least that I knew. And just so happens that his name is David as well. So kind of took that as a sign of like, I'm doing the right thing. And it felt right in that moment. Why it occurred to me in that moment, and I had never ever thought to do it before, I can't tell you. But in that moment, on that day, it felt right. And once I got there, like I said, and they were working on me, and it was the guy I knew, so I felt comfortable. Also, the tattoo parlor is the same place where I got this one done, so it was a place I was familiar with and knew did good work. I got that done, and kind of was dealing with my sadness about that for a couple of days. And then Thursday morning of that week, literally woke up and was getting ready for work, and thought, the thought ran through my head, if someone else that I really loved, like celebrity-wise, hero-wise, whatever you want to say, passed away right now, I don't even know how I would grieve over them, because my grief for David Bowie is so much. And about 20 minutes after that thought occurred to me, the CNN alert that Alan Rickman had died came over my iPad, which was I was standing right here at my vanity doing my makeup for the day, and had my iPad sitting next to me, and I heard the little ding, you know, the thing that tells you there's an alert, and saw that Alan Rickman died. And it broke me down again, just shattered my heart, absolutely, because he was right up there with David Bowie for me. I went to theater school a long time ago now, and there was a moment where I wasn't sure if I was doing the right thing. I was kind of losing faith in myself and losing faith in theater in general and the arts in general. And I had picked up an unofficial biography of his, which I've since heard he actually despises, which is kind of funny, but it's a very complimentary biography. And read about how when he was 26, he was a successful graphic designer, and he decided to just throw it all away and go to acting school. Became an actor, did well on the stage, and didn't get his first film role until he was 42 years old. And it kind of just gave me hope of, like, you know, because of my physical type as an actress, I knew that leaving college, I wasn't going to be employable for a good 10 years, because I'm what they call a character actress, which means, you know, you play the moms, and you play the best friends, and you play those kind of, you know, side roles. In college, I could play the 80-year-old woman, and I could play the middle-aged mother, but in real life, once you get into the real-life acting pool, there are actual 80-year-old women and actual motherly types. So there's just not parts written for people like me at that age. Now I could probably, if I dyed my hair back normal, I could probably play those parts, but it just kind of, that thought kind of destroyed me for a little while, and I kind of wondered, you know, is acting really what I want to do? Because there's not parts written for people like me, so why am I trying to fit into a mold? And in a way, I still kind of feel that way, but now I concentrate more on writing so that I can write those parts, so that there are roles for people like me, for actual human beings, and not for Barbie dolls, and not for stereotypes, and, you know. Anyway, reading that biography about him and reading about his story kind of inspired me to keep at it and to keep doing stuff. And it eventually led me here to Chicago, where, you know, a good part of my life has been spent here. I've been here almost 10 years. So I kind of credit him with that. And leaving college, I started working on what eventually became the first novel that I finished, and have been trying to get published ever since, because that's what you do with a novel. One of the main characters in it was very much inspired by / based on Alan Rickman, and I had, you know, entertained a dream that someday he might play that role, which would have been really cool, but you know, that's life. Anyway, so after the news came down that he had died as well in that same week, at the same age, from the same cause, sort of, you know, because nothing's been confirmed on either side, but allegedly Bowie died of liver cancer, and I believe Rickman died of pancreatic cancer, but still, you know, a lot of similarities there. I was shattered, completely heartbroken, didn't know what to do with myself. Actually ended up having to take off work, because I just needed to surround myself with their art for a day, and so Friday of that week I spent at home, literally just watching David Bowie and Alan Rickman movies, and it got very hard towards the end to find Alan Rickman movies in which he didn't die, because I didn't know that I could handle watching him die in a movie, so kind of got stalemated at one point. I ended up watching interviews with them, kind of just pulling up YouTube and looking up interviews with them, because I needed to connect with them as men, as people, and not as artists for a minute. Well, I needed to connect with them as artists in the work and not artists at work, if that makes sense. And that made me feel a lot better about things. And my friends rallied around me in a way that I did not expect. I thought, you know, I kind of would be met with a lot of ridicule and kind of, oh, that's sad, but she needs to get over it. And that wasn't the case. It was like a member of my family had died, the way that my friends were reaching out to me. Not that I want to claim their family's grief at all, because it's not my grief to have. I am grieving as a fan, not as a member of their family. But the way that my friends reached out to me, knowing that I was in pain without me so much as saying, you know, I'm not good here, was really humbling. People who I hadn't even talked to since high school were messaging me on Facebook saying, you were the first person I thought of when I heard this news. And there are worse things to have your name associated with, you know. And somebody said to me, you know, oh, now you have to get an Alan Rickman tattoo. And for whatever reason, I thought about that. It doesn't feel right for him. It felt right for Bowie. It doesn't feel right for Alan Rickman. And honestly, I don't know what I would get. A lot of people, you know, got always tattoos and got, you know, Snape-related things. The thing is, I love Alan Rickman, the actor. I love Snape too, but Snape is the character, and I didn't want to honor the character if I was going to get a tattoo. It would have to be to honor the actor, and I didn't know how I would do that properly for him. So that's why I don't have a Rickman specific tattoo, but because I got this one in that week, I kind of associate it with both of them now. Because I got it right here because I wanted to see it as I wrote, as I typed, as I write with a pen. You know, when I have my hand down, I can look over and see it. I thought about doing the back of the neck for a second, but I felt like I wanted it somewhere that I could see it, and I'm very happy with it. Originally, I had wanted something a little bit more like the lightning bolt on his face, where it's a little bit more two-dimensional, very much more pointed and slanted, and then that there's no outline around it. It's just the red and then a black and then a blue. But because I knew the tattoo artist, I kind of let him do a little interpretation of it, and I do like it. I go kind of back and forth. At some points I do wish I had gotten a little bit more of the original one, but then I look at it and I like it. I do like it. And he did like a gradient with the blue, so it's more three-dimensional, and yeah, I just like it. It's a little bit more unique, I guess. So yeah, that's the story of the tattoo. That is also the story of where I'm going tonight at this tribute concert thing. Should be interesting. I've been kind of paying attention to a lot of the tributes that have been going around. I literally had not watched the Grammys in probably 20 years, something like that. Because even as a kid, I knew that I didn't particularly like the music that was going around at that time. And at any time, I've never really liked the popular music of the day. So I hadn't watched it. And I saw that Lady Gaga was doing her tribute to him. So I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to sit through the Grammys. I'm going to watch this because Lord knows when they're actually going to air it. And not impressed. I have kind of... I don't even want to say a love-hate relationship with her because I don't really love her. I don't hate her either. I am often disappointed by her because I know that she's a legitimate musician. I've seen her play and sing, and I don't understand why, when she's that talented, she chooses to make overly produced pop songs. And that was where I started to, because I tried to like her for a while, and I like streamed her a lot at my office, and really liked Bad Romance. I actually like that song a lot. But every time I would hear another one of her songs, I had a moment of, oh, what is this doing on my radio station? I don't remember wanting this on my radio station. And kind of thinking, is this Lady Gaga? Is this Katy Perry? Is this Rihanna? I can't tell the difference. And that was when I kind of said, you know what, I'm not going to really be a fan of hers because I that's not the music I like. I don't like generic pop songs, and that's what her stuff sounds like to me. Now maybe that's just me being an old lady, you know. Think what you like, but that was what I thought at the time, and that's what I kind of stuck by. But I understood why they chose her to do the Bowie tribute. It did make sense. But I was disappointed. I was disappointed that... And here's my theory on that. I think, because they said that she was already booked in to do that show, and I think that that sponsorship with Intel was already in place. So I think she was then put in the position of having to incorporate this already existing brand sponsorship with the tribute, and that didn't quite mesh. And it just ended up into a very... Okay, I'm gonna be blunt. I called her Vegas Bowie, because that's what she looked like. She looked like a drag queen doing a Vegas impersonation of David Bowie. And it was just too frenetic, and there was too much going on, and it really didn't capture his essence. And I saw someone else comment about this on another video, but I really liked what he said. That hers was a Lady Gaga tribute with David Bowie, and that's exactly how I feel. It was very much, you know, done for her fans and not for his. She says that she tried to make it an introduction, like, you know, Bowie 101, so that her fans would go out and kind of seek out his music, which is a nice sentiment, but yeah, for his actual fans, I don't think it was very effective. But then again, another friend of mine said this, you know, the Grammys never really showed much love to Bowie in the first place. He had 2 Grammys, one of which was a Lifetime Achievement Award, which he didn't bother to show up to get, because that's how he was. And the other one was for a music video, you know, so the Grammys are kind of a joke. I don't really put much stock in them. But Yeah. So then when I heard they were doing the tribute at the Brit Awards, I had kind of a little bit more hope, thinking, you know, maybe this will be a little bit better, and it was beautiful. The fact that they had his backing band, who he worked with, who were people he knew, you know, and people that I immediately recognized as, like, they've got Gaylan Dorsey there. She, you know, she worked with him for so many years. She was kind of almost iconic, almost in the same way that the Spiders from Mars were in the 70s. You know, she was very identifiable with him for most of the 90s. And having Mike Garson there and Earl Slick and all those guys from his last touring era, for them to do that medley without the lead vocals was just so perfect. It was so perfect. And then to have Lorde come out and do Life on Mars, which is, I was surprised Lady Gaga didn't choose to do Life on Mars, by the way, because that, you would think she would go straight for the Torch song, and she didn't. I don't know, I just thought the tribute at the Brits was so much more fitting and so much more well done. Well doneer. I don't know what the grammatically correct thing is there, but yeah, it just made much more sense to me that way. So then, of course, having the BAFTAs and the Oscars at the same time meant that they would be putting out the tributes to Rickman as well as to David Bowie, and that kind of tore me up again. The BAFTAs especially, because they opened their show with a montage of the movies from the past year, and they played it to Heroes, and they kind of like matched up the footage with the lyrics. Oh, it was just gorgeous. If you didn't see it, I hope you can find it online, because it was brilliant. And then having Stephen Fry, who is, again, right up there as one of my heroes with Rickman and Bowie. In fact, people were saying, like, Stephen Fry needs to get to a safe place, otherwise Jess is going to die of grief if he goes anytime soon. To have him do a little speech about Bowie and talk about how he put color into the world, which is my sentiments exactly. That was heart-wrenching. So they didn't do anything special for Rickman, which I'm not surprised by, and actually I'm okay with. Because one of the things that always bugs me when they do those memorials is when they give extra time to someone, and it's like they're saying, you know, this person's death meant more than this person's death. And that I don't like. And so even at the Oscars, they kind of did everything evenly this year, and I thought that was a much better way to go about it. And they didn't have, like, sometimes people applaud when the names come up, and then it's awkward because one person will get a lot of applause, and then another person barely gets any, and it's weird, and I don't like when they do that. So I'm glad that they kind of said to people, like, yeah, don't applaud, maybe. Yeah, I thought the Oscars were kind of boring this year, but I literally watched them just to watch the memorial section, so that's kind of morbid. But that's kind of what I've been dealing with for the last 2 months now, I guess. But I've got kind of some bright stuff on the horizon here. This concert tonight is kind of the start of that, so that's why I've been looking forward to it so much, because after tonight, next week, I go to see The Who play the United Center, and it is most likely the last time The Who will ever be playing in Chicago or anywhere, because they're not going to tour again. So says Pete Townsend, but he said that before. But this time I kind of believe him, especially because this concert was supposed to have happened last October. And Roger Daltrey contracted meningitis, and they had to postpone the tour. I saw them once when I was, I guess 12. I was in 8th grade. I remember that. And they were coming around touring Quadrophenia. And it was before John Entwistle had died, so it was kind of cool that I got to see 3 out of the 4 original members. And I thought I would never get to see them live again. I really didn't. And then this tour came up. They had been through Chicago previously since I've been here, but always to the suburb, which is hard for me to get to because I don't have a car. And there was a long period of time here where I didn't have a lot of reliable friends, so I didn't want to have to find my way all the way down to the suburbs by myself. and then go see a concert by myself. But now they're coming to the United Center, which is much easier for me to get to, and I have a friend who's going with me, so that worked out. And I'm really excited about it, because The Who were kind of talking about Heroes. That just made me think of Heroes. The Who were the catalyst for me. The moment that I kind of like transitioned from childhood to teenagerhood and started discovering my identity was through them. Up until then, I had kind of been a theater kid. I'd only listened to musicals and kind of like the stuff that my mother listened to, which was mostly oldies. Not necessarily classic rock, but more just kind of like Motown and doo-wop and stuff. And then I kind of discovered Tommy, which was their rock opera and all the cool kids at my musical there at my community theater were into Tommy at the time. So I kind of discovered Tommy, and that led me into listening to more of their music. And that just opened up my eyes to a whole other world. It was why I picked up guitar and started learning that. It was how I fell in love with, like I said, with David Bowie, with the Beatles, with the Rolling Stones, with Elton John. Everything stemmed from that initial discovery of The Who. So they have always been my kind of number one influence, inspiration, whatever you want to call them. And I've decided already that on the sad, sad day that both Roger Daltrey and Pete Townsend are gone, that I will be adding a bullseye to this lightning bolt. I can't decide if I want to do the bullseye on the top of it or on the bottom of it. I think if I put it on the top of it, then it kind of forms an eye. And it's like, you know, those are the two things that formed my identity, so it makes sense to do that. But the other way, it kind of forms an exclamation point. So I don't know. I haven't decided where it'll go yet, but hopefully I won't have to decide that for many, many years, because I don't want either of them to go away. But it'll be fun to see them in concert. I just wrote a piece for a fairly large local publication / website out here about their history in Chicago. And that was a lot of fun to research, because I used to do like every book report I could about The Who when I was a kid in elementary school. So getting to kind of jump back into that place of discovery of them and where they've been and where they're at was very fun for me. So hopefully that piece goes up. I'm not entirely sure that it will, just because of reasons, but hopefully it does go up, because I took a lot of time and pride in putting that piece together. So we shall see. But that's next week, and funnily enough, that concert is 2 months to the day that David Bowie died. So, you know, there's significance in coincidence sometimes, I think. And it's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. You know, people kind of dismiss a lot of coincidence and universal signs, or whatever you want to call it. They dismiss it, you know, saying it's just coincidence, saying it's meaningless stuff that kind of happens. And it's a lot of it is based on the fact that humans like to interpret patterns. But the thought occurred to me the other day of, why would we be built to interpret patterns if there were no patterns to interpret? So, you know, maybe there's some flawed logic there. There probably is, but it's the thing I'm kind of clinging to right now, and it makes me feel a little bit more hopeful than I felt in the past couple of months. Also have been writing. After Bowie died, I revisited an idea I had for a story when I was in college, about the decay of the art scene in on a global scale. And I've reworked it and kind of done some different things with it, and I'm really happy with how it is right now. So I'm hoping good things will come from that. I really am, because I like it a lot. Oh yeah, I think that's it. Sorry, I had to turn the camera off because I can't talk while I'm putting on my lips, but I think I'm all done here. Gonna do some jewelry additions and floof this hair. It's not doing what I wanted it to do, so gotta kind of futz with it. But yeah, I think I'm ready to go for the concert. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me and listening to me ramble on in what is probably going to be a very long video. But please do, if you are a Bowie fan or a Rickman fan, feel free to leave your memories of them in the comments. I've found such comfort in commiserating with other fans, so if you have anything that you'd like to share, that would be awesome, and I will hopefully talk to you a lot sooner than I did this time around. Bye guys.